Museum is a place where time does not matter. Looking at the artifacts, we are experiencing the most vivid and exciting moments of history. The program Secrets of Museums on Kazakh TV channel. Coming up, Ibarai Altynsarin was a people's teacher. He dreamed his nation to be enlightened. The Memorial Museum of an outstanding enlightener reflects the modernity and spirit of the bygone era. We will tell about the life of the teacher, his talent, and breakthrough approach. Kazakhstanis honor their ancestors, especially those who dedicated their lives to people's enlightenment. The scientist-ethnographer Ibarai Altynsarin was recognized as one of the prominent educators and innovators. He founded the Kazakh written literature. Ibarai Altynsarin was born in the middle of the 19th century in 1841 in Arak-Karagay region of Nikolaevsky County, now Kostanay. Today, there is a memorial museum of an outstanding educator in the center of Kostanay city. Kazakhstan's gaining independence in 1991 coincided with the 150th birth anniversary of Ibarai Altynsarin. It was then that this museum was built. Kostanay Regional Memorial Museum of Ibarai Altynsarin was built on the site of the Russian-Kazakh school consisting of 2 grades, founded by the great teacher in 1884. Near the museum there is a boarding school for gifted children. The school, like the street along the museum, is named after Altynsarin. There is also a monument to the teacher and a memorial plate with a memorable inscription. Despite the modern building of the museum, there is a spirit of time when the teacher lived and worked. Archival documents, rare photos of Orenburg city of the times when Altynsarin lived, all this immerses us into a special atmosphere. Being in large Russian cities, admiring their architecture, Altynsarin always dreamed that in his homeland there would be also such beautiful buildings. If only he had known that in 50 years, the museum in his honor will become a site of modern Kostanay city. Ibarai lost his father when he was a child. After that, he was brought up in the family of his grandfather, the famous Balgaja Zhanborsin. In 1850, the boy was sent to a boarding school for the Kazakh children at the Orenburg Border Committee. While studying at school, Ibarai Altynsarin was very diligent. He strived to get good knowledge. He was a self-studied person. He read the works of Shakespeare, Goethe, Byron, Pushkin, Gogol, Lermontov, Nizami, Navai, and other classics of world literature. Of course, there were no such books in the school library. The Orientalist scholar Vasily Grigoriev, who at that time served at the Border Commission, always presented the books to Altynsarin. Altynsarin graduated from the school with a gold medal. He worked diligently for 3 years as a clerk at his grandfather Balgaja in the Orenburg District Department, where he got acquainted with an Orientalist Nikolai Ilminsky. The Russian teacher and missionary inspired Altynsarin to have desire for independent thought and respect for the history of his people.
Первой главной мечтой было то, что он хотел учить детей.
The main dream of the teacher was to teach children. After graduating from the school, he received a certificate of appreciation, and in 1857 he became a translator at his grandfather Balgaja B. And then he got the job in the Orenburg Border Commission, where he also translated documents. After working for a while, Altynsarin asked to be appointed a simple teacher at school.
Учителем.
In 1860, the regional department assigned Altynsarin to open a school for the Kazakh children in Torgay, where he was appointed the Russian language teacher. The educational institution was built for the means of patrons, whom the enlightener personally argued to make donations. In 4 years, the school was opened. 16 boys were registered for the first lessons. To mark this moment, Altynsarin wrote his famous poems, Kel Balalar Okelik, Let's Study Children. It is preserved in an archival letter to his friend Ilminsky. The colorful dioramas of the museum, Iberai Altynsarin with school students and Muslim education, created in 2010, impress very much visitors. The successes of the first school students and Altynsarin's innovative approach for teaching, for example, the opening of the boarding school, had fruitful results. The teacher's work was appreciated. The chief of the Orenburg fortification, in his report to the Governor General, gave an excellent recommendation to Altynsarin and his work. The merit of Iberai Altynsarin lies not only in his opening the schools. He succeeded alone in creating an entire system of education. He didn't only open educational institutions, but independently sought funds, materials for construction, developed methodical manuals, and monitored the work of teachers. Probably he was both the educator and the minister of education. The teacher himself in 1864 made a note that his school students learned to read and write in 3 languages in just 3 months. Now, he said, I try to appeal to their morals so that later they do not become bribe takers. One of the central exhibits of the museum is the composition Step Bell, with a sculpture of an enlightener taking children to school. The bell reflects knowledge, a new life. The boundless step reflects awakening. The cabinet of the teacher also attracts visitors' interest. Enlightened Kazakhs furnished their houses with similar furniture of the 19th century. The exposition of the museum includes also an invaluable rarity, a personal thing of Altynsarin's family. Tosek cup, a cover for bidding. And also, there are things of the descendants of the enlightener, who continued the work of their great ancestor. Paying much attention to the professional education of the population, Iberai Altynsarin spent a lot of effort on the opening of vocational and agricultural schools. In this regard, there is a place for craft workshop in the hall of the museum. Altynsarin initiated the women's education and contributed much into the organization of classes for girls. This work was hampered both by the Tsarist authorities and by native population of Irgiz County. Some people thought that for girls, instead of education, it was enough to learn to put their signature to do the simplest calculations. And others were sure that they did not need any education at all, as it could affect the traditional way of life. Once in Irgiz, a group of people gathered in a vocational school to decide the expediency of opening a school for girls. The ardent opponents of a new school argued that the female mind is not acceptable for studying and comprehending even the simplest arithmetic. Others tried to argue with them. Then Altınsarin addressed the men with the words,
Kızlarınızды мектепке бергендеріңіз дұрыс. Ол балалар ғана білім ала бермеу керек. Тұтамыз, тәрбиелейміз.
"Do you want other nations to look arrogantly at your sisters and daughters?
Сол жағын ойлаңыз, аға сіз ойлаңыз да. Бұйыртса жинап,
Or do you want your children to have literate mothers who can teach them a lot of things?"
кететін боламыз. Сондықтан ешқандай бұл білімнің артықшылығы болмайды. Ертең өзіне, болашағына, барлығына пайдасы.
Some of them began to think, while others continued to argue that girls would not have to learn twice longer than boys.
Барлықтарыңыз жиналып мына жерге отырыңыз.
In reply to these words, Altınsarin ordered to invite a girl and a boy in the room. They were the children of the librarian from Irgaz.
Балалар, келе қойыңдар мына жерге.
Let's find out whether girls are more stupid than boys.
Қазір мен екеуіне тапсырма беріп көрейін. Егер қыз бала
I will ask children simple questions, and together we will listen to their answers. If the girl doesn't cope with the tasks, then we will not open a school for girls. Everybody agreed.
балалар сендер дайынсыңдар ма?
Are you ready? Well, here's your first task. A deaf shepherd needs to buy a horsewhip. His old whip was completely worn out and torn. He came to the market and he hardly found a store with horse harness. How could he explain to the seller that he needed the horsewhip?
Сондықтан сатушыға барған кезде ол не деп айтады? Соны кім біледі екен?
Мен ұстазым, мен.
Айта ғой.
He spoke by signs, replied the boy and waved his hand as if holding the whip. The girl stood in silence. "Why are you silent?" the man asked her. "Don't you know what to say?" The shepherd could just ask for the whip because he is deaf, not numb, the girl said softly. All the people laughed and praised the child, but Altınsarin continued. There are 3 bağırsaks, fried puffy bread, in the cup. How to divide bağırsaks between 3 guests so that everyone gets an equal amount and 1 bağırsak would remain in the cup? The boy thought and gave 3 bağırsaks to 3 men. Altınsarin took an empty cup and handed it to the girl, asking, "How do you think to solve this task?" The girl took the dish, went to one of the men with bağırsak in her hands, and put his bağırsak in the cup. "The 3rd bağırsak should be given to the guest in the cup," she replied. Cheers were heard in the room. Nobody argued with Altınsarin anymore and did not doubt that girls could also study in schools. But the man asked to give one more task. It was already interesting for them to take part in its decision. Altınsarin agreed. Only 2 flatbreads can be cooked in tandoor. Each side of the flatbread should be fried with fingers, snapped 3 times. How to fry 3 flatbreads in tandoor on both sides for 9 clicks. Men began to twist and twist cakes, counting clicks. One, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. But no matter how hard they tried, while snapping with fingers 9 times, one side of the flatbread remained uncooked. Then the girl was asked again to give her word. "Can I try?" And she began to speak quietly. First, while slapping 3 times, we fry the first and second flatbreads on one side. Next, the first flatbread is taken out, and instead of it, the third flatbread is put. And the second flatbread is turned over. On the 4th, 5th, and 6th click, the second flatbread is completely ready and it is removed. The first half-fried flatbread is placed in its place and the third is turned over. While we snap with fingers for the 7th, 8th, and 9th times, the first and third flatbreads will be fried. There was silence in the room. The girl went to the exit and the men looked astonished. The rumor about this meeting spread across Irgiz, after which many people wanted to give their daughters to the school for girls that was opened there. Thus, with the support of Altynsarin, the school for girls was opened in Irgiz. Later, boarding schools for girls were opened in Torgay, Kostanay, and Akhtubinsk. Thus, Altynsarin initiated the secular education for the Kazakh people. He personally opened 4 two-grades Russian Kazakh schools, a vocational school and women's educational institution, 5 district schools, and 2 schools for children from the Russian villages. He also opened a teacher's school in Troitsk. Altynsarin had written 2 textbooks, Kyrgyz Chrestomathy, Initial Guide to Teaching the Russian Language to Kyrgyz People, as well as many textbooks for children. The characters of Altynsarin's literary works are known to all Kazakh children. Their images are shown in school textbooks for primary school. The invaluable exhibit of the museum is the original book of Altynsarin, Shariat ul-Islam. This textbook was compiled in 1884 in the Kazakh language in the Arabic script. It opened for the Kazakhs the way to the spiritual and moral wealth of Islam. The teacher was convinced that the right religious and moral education contributes to the spiritual development of the people. At the same time, Altynsarin mainly paid attention to the ideals of democratic enlightenment in his translations of the Russian classics Leo Tolstoy, Ivan Krylov, Konstantin Ushinsky, and in original works. Altynsarin was a well-educated person in almost all areas. His scientific works included ethnography. In his work Essay on Customs of the Kyrgyz People at the Orenburg Department during marriage proposals and wedding, he didn't only record a rich ethnographic material, but also noted some archaic customs which, in his opinion, were to become eradicated. The article received general approval and was soon published. In 1879, Ibrai Altynsarin was appointed to the post of a school inspector of Torgay region. He paid much attention to the training of teachers and the opening of libraries at each school. To this end, the enlightener personally collected and donated to schools the means worth hundreds of rubles. These were considerable money at that time. In 1883, the state councilor Ibrai Altynsarin moved to a house built 3 kilometers away from Kostanay city, near the Tobol River. The educator and enlightener lived and worked there until his death in 1883. He was buried near his house next to the grave of his father. During the scientist ethnographer's lifetime, in 1884, an article was published in the newspaper Orenburgsky Listok. The students and followers of Altynsarin wrote in the article, For us nomads, the teacher's works are very valuable. We are ready to present him as a hero who becomes a reflection of the whole people. Its spirit, mind, temper, character, and the whole life.